Hello there friends, this is Soft Remedy and this video is all about dynamic poses. But before we get into the material, there is something that I need to say first, especially for those of you who are still within the beginner stages of becoming a digital artist. You must first of all, must at least, is capable of tinkering with 3D objects within a 3D environment. I'm talking about cubes, I'm talking about spheres, I'm talking about cones, I'm also talking about cylinders. Because why is that? Because basically these forms, they are the basics of basics, and they are found usually across the materials. In everything you do, in everything you draw, these things are always prevalent. And I'm not going to go in depth on that, hence which is why if you haven't practiced enough in terms of like these 3D shapes and how they work within a 3D environment, then I suggest you to skip the video and just practice some more. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into practice, shall we? Now, usually when we start off as digital artists, the first things that we see is, we watch the tutorials that are there in the internet. And usually when it comes to anatomy, you're always presented with this basic pose. I'm talking about, this is the head, and then there's the neck, and then here's the collarbone, shoulders, and this is basic stuff. Torso, and the arms, pelvis, and then the legs. Usually you're usually taught to draw this first. Now technically it's not wrong, since you're really trying to figure out the human anatomy, but you can't really make poses with this now, can you? If you're just drawing this every time you draw a human, it gets stale, it gets boring, it's not fun. And so we need a change of pace, and to level up your game, we are going to need a few concepts to really make those poses dynamic. So first of all, we reject this because this is too stiff. Now, the first concept that we need to learn, especially as the beginner in posing, is that you need to know what is the line of action. Line of action. Now what does this mean? Now the line of action basically just represents how force is applied within an object. Usually when we talking about the human subject, we talk about how force makes these people do things differently, do different poses, different actions. There's force behind that, and how they distribute their weight within that certain pose. Now, sort of, the line of action can be pretty simple. Like this. There's a slight curve here, and what beginner artists do not know is that just by having this line, it's already telling a lot. It's already giving a lot of information for the artist on what the poses are generally going to be like. So for example, we take this, right? Here's the head, and by looking at the line of action here, we improvise, and see, this is much more dynamic. If you look at the torso here, much more dynamic than this one right here. It's too stiff. Straight line here, you give it a little curve, you give it a pose, and voila. You know, it's actually that simple. And you know, when drawing these poses, you don't have to make them too detailed or too complicated. Remember, what we're going after here is getting that flow, is getting that movement within that pose. And you can make it as rough as you like when drawing these dynamic poses, you know. And then usually when you're really confident with the pose that you have right now, you can usually just make a layer on top of it and really then put the details down. But for the sake of the video, I'm not going to draw anything too detailed, because the most important thing that you must get is the flow. Okay, so let's make another line of action here. Now what I'm going to draw is something like this. Okay, now if you look at the line like this, basically here's the head, and then you're going to make the body. Remember, you just have to improvise the body shapes in alignment to the lines. And here you go. You know, now this is much more dynamic than the first picture that I just made. So really, especially here, that's why I stated that, you know, getting down 3D objects into a 3D environment is very important, because without that basic knowledge, you would not be able to really improve and break the boundaries of, you know, of these shapes and how they might fit in within the alignment of the line of action. Now, the second concept that is equally important with the line of action is actually perspective. Why? Because with perspective, you can really go wild with what you want to portray in your character. So for example, you know, let's make it a one vanishing line. Okay, 1 point. So usually it goes somewhere like this, and just by having this one vanishing point alone, you can already create a character that's different in pose, different in perspective, and sometimes even dynamic. Okay. See, you just have to make it rough. You don't have to make it perfect either when drawing the vanishing line. You just need to have an estimate of, okay, so here's the vanishing line. I draw the line here, I draw the line there, and you can then create characters like this. Now, for example, let's make it a 2-point perspective. And it's already over the line, but at least let's just assume that the vanishing point of number 2 is way over there. And here I'm drawing a character For those of you who watch football or soccer, if you're from America, you definitely know what I'm drawing here. Yes, I'm drawing a goalkeeper, and then there's the goal here, and the ball just went straight into goal. So you can see just how dynamic perspective can be, and how that changes how you draw your characters because of just how the placements can be different with vanishing points. And again, you don't have to make these poses perfect on the first try. You just need to make them rough. You need to make sure that, okay, so it goes like this, it goes like this, at least it looks good. Here it's also a bit dynamic with the leg placement. Here it's different, and also with the line of action here you can see that the weight and how it is distributed is very different. This leg here is holding much more weight than this leg, for example. And in this pose you can see that because the upper body is tilted in a certain way, depending on how heavy you are, each leg may not bear the same weight when you move your upper body left or right, depending on the situation. Okay, I guess this is it for today. It's pretty simple. First is the concept of line of action, and the second is perspective, and how you use them depends on what you need. And I just hope that you can keep on trying and keep on tinkering with them, and I'm looking forward to what you guys can make with these two concepts. This is Soft Remedy. I'm signing out.